All right, y'all, what's up? Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, live. VP Skinner, 30 minutes late. Sorry about that. I'll take the blame. We got a lot going on, but we are here. We are breaking down South Carolina versus Wofford, the final home game of the year for South Carolina. Very hard to believe, but as we've been telling you all season long, come on by if you need a new game day fit. VP Skinner right here in the Vista, 1003A Gervais Street. And they're already getting ready. So is this Vista Lights tonight? Yes, I guess, Chris. So if you're in the area, looks like a good time. And if you can get down here before Brent closes, a great time to stop by. And obviously, like we always tell you, whether it's a wedding, your own, or someone else's you're wanting to dress up for, big events, business clothing, or your Gamecock gear, come on by VP Skinner. They'll take great care of you. You can just walk in, tell them what you have coming up, tell them what you're thinking about, and they're going to help you kind of do the rest. If you're not a very fashionable person on your own, right, which I'll put myself in that category, they will, the whole crew here will help you out. So go ahead and do that. Chris, South Carolina, Wofford this weekend. You really hate to just gloss over this game, but we're not going to lie either. Like I feel like it feels a little different than, frankly, any other game this year.
Yeah.
And, you kind of look at it. This is a game where you're favored by 40-plus points in the one, big book I've seen that actually does have a line. Last I saw, it's 42.5, and the over-under is 49.5 or so. So that kind of tells you Vegas does not really see South Carolina giving up many points in this game as you would expect, and having a chance to kind of walk away with it. This is a Wofford team that has hung in there but has struggled a little bit. They're kind of right around 500. And I think, I was talking about this with Tyler earlier on 107.5. We've seen South Carolina teams where you do have to worry about an FCS team coming in. And, we saw it against the Citadel. I mean, the kind of that worst case, that worst fear comes to life. And, you tend to think, and you got to get the caveat out of the way that anything can happen on any Saturday.
Sure.
Once you kind of take away that 0.5% of just the craziest game you've ever seen happening, I think this South Carolina team just better built to deal with not having any type of letdown. And then, frankly, this just has not been a Wofford team that you look at. Like, there are some FCS teams you look at and you say, hey, you better be ready for these guys. South Carolina obviously better be ready. But I don't think we can in good conscience sit here and be like, upset alert, something like that. Like, Carolina should be able to do what they do and win this game, you would think.
So you watched SEC Inside the other night, right? That was a good episode. Shane Beamer had some themes that he was reminding the team of constantly, before the game, during the game, after the game in the locker room. And one of the phrases he kept using was fireproof, right? And so, again, I'm with you. You put in the 0.5, the 1% of the crazy of crazy, right? But once you get past that, that phrase did come to mind, that this team, I think, because of the way South Carolina is built and because of the caliber of opponent you're facing and the type of opponent you're facing, I think South Carolina is built to sustain that. They're well insulated. They're fireproof, I guess you could say, against that. Carolina is able to run the football. Carolina defensively has been quite good. Wofford has played a tough FCS schedule, which Shane Beamer pointed out. And like you said, they've hung in there. But they have struggled to score at that level, right? They don't run the football particularly well at that level. They've struggled with turnovers. They have played a couple quarterbacks because their original starter was injured. He's been back the past, I think, few weeks, should be back for this game. But even when he's been in there, not a dynamic passing attack, right? Now, compare that to the past. Citadel game's a great example. Even some really good Steve Spurrier teams that might have had a couple warts. You get an FCS option team in here. That's always what you would worry about, right? We saw the Mike Ayers, Wofford teams come in here and give some scares to South Carolina. When you have to spend a whole week preparing for an option offense, you just don't get a good look at her, right? Even Nick Saban has talked about that in the past, the old crap through a tin horn. I cleaned that up a little bit against, I can't even remember what team that was. Maybe Charleston Southern back in the day when he was at Bama. Different ball game, right? Because now you're stepping down a level to FCS against a team that has not been among the best teams in FCS and also doesn't run that offensive style that can cause you so many problems. So you feel like South Carolina's pretty well suited.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I think you go back, like you said, some of those really good South Carolina teams did kind of let some of these teams hang around back then. It's been – I was looking through the game note, and, this is not a team, frankly, that you just automatically know a whole lot about. Like a lot of the SEC schools, you kind of – throughout the year, you've had an opportunity to watch them a little bit, so you kind of know who their best players are, who to keep an eye on. And this is not a Wofford team that South Carolina has really played a ton in recent memory.
Right.
Last time they played, 2017. Kind of hard to believe. To give you an idea, Chris, Jake Bentley was the quarterback. A.J. Turner was South Carolina's leading rusher in this game. Brian Edwards was the leading receiver. And on this day, Sky Moore tied the school record at the time with his 14th career interception. And Dante Sawyer had his 5th forced fumble of the season, which was tops in the SEC.
How about that?
So that kind of – I always feel like you start throwing names at people and their brain will go back to, oh, that's the era I'm thinking of. And so this is not an in-state foe that Carolina has played a ton lately. And it's not a team that South Carolina has lost to since 1917. So that kind of gives you an idea of where things are, at least with just modern history with these opponents. Couple of close ones back in the day. I thought it was interesting. This is not necessarily about this game, but I was listening to Dow Loggins and Clayton White, their press conference earlier this week. And so, Chris, I thought something was kind of interesting that is worth mentioning from a big picture standpoint. You know how those option teams back then, you would hear defensive coordinators say stuff like, hey, we had to put in a little bit of this in the preseason. Like they talk about just giving an introduction to some of the stuff you're going to see later on, right, so that you're not just facing an option team and only looking at it for 1 week. And I thought something was fascinating to maybe just file away for future reference. Clayton White talking about the Missouri running game. And obviously coordinators don't talk right after the game. So they're kind of midweek is more big picture. Some of it's about Wofford. Some of it is looking back at the game. And he was talking about how, like we call it outside zone, stretch zone. But really Missouri's is more of a true like stretch zone running game, which from a technical standpoint is different. It's a different animal than just kind of outside zone. And Clayton White said, look, this is something I think we're going to have to do more against it in the offseason moving forward just to get our guys ready for it. And I thought that was kind of just just fascinating, something to file away for next time. But two, just goes to show, like, those guys have had a great year on the defensive side of the ball, but then nobody is perfect. Like, for a coach to be like, hey, man, I think I want to learn from this and do something a little bit different seemed noteworthy to me.
Yeah, kind of in a similar fashion to this offseason, right? You knew that South Carolina was going to have to get better in the pass rush department. Number one way you do that is you go out and get pass rushers, which they did. They brought in Kyle Kennard, they brought in Dylan Stewart, they brought some guys back, get interior pass rush. But in addition to that, Clayton White went around and made a concern. Coaches go every offseason and go visit some places. But for him, a lot of it seemed to be really honing in on pass rush. And so we've seen, obviously, the impact of players, but we've also seen the impact schematically from a coaching standpoint, what some of those tweaks in that offseason prep has done. So nothing wrong with that, trying to go look at something else. Hey, what has caused us problems? And I remember Gamecock fans won't like this example, but Brett Venables when he was at Clemson. Remember Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech? Venables literally Googled, how do you stop the triple option? Like he told the story and goes and finds the coaching points. They figure it out, and then Georgia Tech can't do anything, right? So if you're Carolina, you look at what Missouri's done against you, and in particular last week, right? That was your worst rush defense performance of the year, right? You're going to look at that this offseason and say, that's something we need to hone in on a little bit more. You're not going to see it every week, right? So you don't spend an overtime on it, but you probably are going to have to address it a little bit more for the Gamecocks this year to kind of tie it together to Wofford. You know, I don't know the intricacies of their offense. I know Sean Watson, offensive guy. I think he was the OC Texas, Louisville in the past, but they're not going to come in and run the option.
Yeah.
So you don't need as much of an intro to what they're going to do.
Yeah. And I see a couple comments. They heard us talking option and thought, we're not saying Wofford runs the option. Right. The original reason the option got brought up was that this is not one of those teams where you come in and say, dadgummit, we got to deal with the option all day. And you got to deal with your guys getting cut blocked all freaking day as well. And that's just not good for your defensive line because we saw not that Vandy is like the triple option, but they were doing a ton of like low block stuff, legal low blocks, but that happens to be the game. Your entire defensive front ends up getting banged up. I don't know that that's a coincidence at all, if you ask me. But anyway, so this Wofford team comes in. To me, it's all about South Carolina just handling their business. This is a game. I was going through the red shirt tracker. At this point, Chris, every single true freshman is locked into their redshirt status. And if you go through it, there's that group of guys who have pretty much played in every game. Some of them have played in every game on offense or defense. A few of them have played in every game when you include special teams. I think that would include like David Busey, J.R. Johnson. They've gotten in like the blowouts, but also have gotten in on special teams in every other game. Josiah Thompson has played in just about every game. This was his first game. He didn't really get in this past week. But for the most part, we know who that crew is, Mazio Bennett. Well, the rest of the group, the freshmen that have not been in every game, all those guys are going to be able to redshirt. And so the most any of those guys have played at this point is 2 regular season games at this point. So you would hope you would get all those guys in a perfect world on Saturday, even if they played the last 2 games. Even if they played the last 2 games and then the bowl game, because those don't count anymore towards your eligibility, which I think is a great rule. That means it's all kind of locked in. I think another part of this weekend or another part of this game, getting through it healthy, but then getting your freshmen into the football game, because there are some guys you are going to very quickly need to grow up going into next year because they're going to play big roles. A J.R. Johnson, we know the linebacker room is going to be very different. Can you get a Jalua Solomon on the field? Can you get a Kelvin Hunter on the field? I know those guys were banged up a little bit in the middle of the season as well. Hopefully they're 100%. To me, get a big lead, but also this probably feels like a game where you can rotate a little bit more liberally even early in the game, because as much depth as Carolina has and now they have more depth than recent years, I feel like in these tight SEC battles, they have kind of tightened the rotation down a little bit, playing their guys. Like they're leaning on their guys, right? Yes. Maybe you take a step back from that a little bit. Maybe J.R. Johnson's on the field, drive 3 or something this week, as opposed to when it's a blowout.
And we saw that on offense too, right? Like tightening things up offensively. There was one game you looked at the receiver rotation and it had been pared down a lot, so that's not really a point on the freshman, just a general point. So this game, I agree with you. I think you'll see, again, if possible, all this is as long as score dictates, as long as situation dictates. Get down early if you're not moving the football like you thought, if you're having some trouble, obviously that's going to throw a wrench in all this. Very interesting, Wes, that looking over your piece, I'll give you credit on this. David Busey, one of 5 true freshmen that has played in every game so far. And I know you predicted before the season he would avoid a red shirt. Maybe you missed on another couple. I don't know, but I'll give you credit.
No, I got them all.
I'll give you credit for David Busey. I mean, there's another example of a guy, right? Nicky Manwari, going to have a decision to make after this season. So you look at Busey, he's a guy that has played a lot of special teams, played a little bit at safety. Can you get him in the game? Staff seems to like him a lot. But this is prime time to be able to rest your guys, again, if possible, and get some of your young players some experience, some valuable experience.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. Nick, there's some guys that gets to the point where you're just like, dude, you should go. Like, you're going to have – like the talk I've seen about Nick, and for a safety, which safety is not the most valued position in the world, but, I mean, dude, I've heard late first-round talk.
Yeah.
Which probably more realistically first or second round, maybe third. Well, you know, who knows how it all plays out once the NFL teams dive in. But he's had a great year, man. I think if you're a Gamecock fan, you sort of are already expecting or accepting, I should say, all right, this is my last few opportunities to watch Nicky Manwari go play. And it's been a great career. Now, those guys have played a bunch of snaps. Like, even when they do still rotate a pretty good bit up front on the D-line. Linebacker, it's really been the main three for the two spots. Secondary, it's a little rotation at corner.
Yeah.
But safety and nickel, I mean,
it's the guys.
It's your guys.
Yeah.
And it's very much – I heard somebody put it this way. I never really thought about this, but it's true. It's very much like an NFL approach. Like, dude, the NFL guys, for the most part, unless you're hurt, like, you just go play. If you're a big money guy, if you're the guy they're counting on, you're on the field. And, you know, luckily for those guys, or fortunately for those guys, for the most part, they've stayed healthy. There's been bumps and bruises, or they'll have to come out at times, but for the most part, they've all stayed healthy and been able to go and play well. So you would hope this week will bring a combination of getting the young guys on the field, but also I feel like you want some moments for the seniors. And I'll be very curious to see which of the veteran guys choose to walk. And also worth pointing out, worth bringing up, just because you see a guy go through senior night does not mean that they can't come back.
That's right.
They very easily could still go through it and come back. But for a lot of them, you know, you're going through that with at least knowing the possibility this could be your last game at Willie B. I see you got Brian Shoemaker's entire scholarship breakdown there.
The trustee scholarship breakdown.
Lots of seniors do.
And that's a good point that you made, you know, where a lot of the focus is on get young players in, rest your starters. But what about the seniors, right? You've got seniors on this team that have not factored in a ton. So they're going to want to have, I think, opportunities to play those guys, honor those guys, give them opportunities that they've earned as well. And so it'll be interesting to see, again, caveat, provided they can have that opportunity to do it. But, you know, Juju McDowell. You know, Juju McDowell's a guy that's played his time here, 21, 22, 23, 24.
That is actually very hard to believe.
That is hard to believe. But, you know, we are finally running into the guys that don't have the COVID year.
Yeah.
Right? And Juju has factored in. He's been on the field. He hasn't played a ton. He's played some running back. He's been out there on kick return. So he's a guy that, you know, does he get more, you know, an abundance of snaps compared to what he typically gets? You know, a Peyton Mangrum at receiver. You know, Luedecke. Like, opportunities for those guys, I think it'd be awesome to be able to see. Yes, we want to see some young players, the future of the program, but also some of those guys that have given a lot and been around a while.
Does Luedecke get a touch? Like,
oh, you got to get Luke a touch.
I feel like you got to get Luke a touch.
Yeah.
You got to get maybe some of the walk-on guys a touch, you would hope. Now, let me also say, Luke's got another year.
He does have another year.
He's got a year of eligibility, so it's really up to him at this point.
You get him a touch to be safe.
Yeah, just to be sure.
Yeah.
I would take a guess if Luke wanted to stick around and if he said, you know what, not using the final year, if he wanted to go into the coaching arena, he would have a role on this team for next year as well. So I think Luke is going to have options, no doubt.
You can tell that Beamer, I mean, he always loops in Luke, right?
Mhm.
Like when he's talking about the seniors, a lot of times, you know, Beamer will pick out a few guys like team captains, and he'll talk about Boogie a lot, Tonka, starter guys. Luke hasn't been, you know, a starter for this team this season, but you can tell he really just thinks highly of him and what he's about and how he kind of embodies what he wants the program to be.
Yeah, and we didn't really plan to go with a trip down memory lane with the seniors, but I actually think this is good because next week that will be their last regular season games, but it won't be senior night, and we're going to be dialed in to Clemson, like to the matchup. And we'll let you know what we're thinking on final show. Obviously, it won't be on Thursday. We'll all be, I guess, laying on the couch after stuffing our faces on Thursday afternoon. But, Chris, I'm looking at the chart right now. You got Davis Bevel at quarterback.
Yep.
Juju, technically Oscar Attaway, though I believe there's probably an opportunity for him to come back.
He can come back.
But Rocket,
Yep.
Gage Larbadan, Delvon Campbell. Now, technically listed as juniors, you got guys like Luke, Peyton Mangrum, Jared Brown, I'm sure they will want to bring back. But then back to just true seniors, Josh Simon at tight end. You got on the offensive line, Rashawn Lee, Ja'Kai Moore. Although Ja'Kai wanted to continue his career, it's another injury year. He would probably be able to just tack on there. Torselli Simpkins, the third. Kamar Bell, the first, as far as I know. Tonka Hemingway, Boogie, Nick Barrett, DeAndre Jules, all at interior line. Elijah Davis has not played this year, so, we'll see there. Kyle Kennard, Gilbert Edmond, all edge guys. Then you got linebacker, Debo Williams, Van Martin Scott, Demetrius Knight. DB, David Spalding, O'Donnell Fortune. Then you're going to have to completely remake your special teams crew because you have Kai Kroger, Hunter Rogers, and Alex Herrera as well. And I'll apologize up front. I'm sure there are some seniors that are walk-ons that have given a lot to the program as well that maybe were not mentioned. I was going off the scholarship breakdown here. So if their parents are listening, I do apologize. But that just gives fans like that's a lot of guys who have some of them been here a year, some of them been here forever, but they've all given a lot to this program.
I mean, it is and you hate to get too far ahead and go sit here with this team being 7-3, with 2 more games coming up, postseason play coming up, and you're going, how are they going to replace all these guys next year, right? But, I mean, it's hard to go through this and not have that thought, particularly. I mean, your whole kicking battery, your linebackers, you mentioned 3 guys, right? That's all of them. Kyle Kennard. But, I mean, your interior guys, then you're looking at TJ Sanders, the opportunity to have a decision, right? Kind of like Nicky Minori. 3 interior starters on the offensive line, like Rocket. There's so many of them. And, man, whether they've been here a year or, Rashawn Lee's been here forever, it seems like. A lot of impact here. So, hopefully people will come out. I know Beamer, and he says this every year, but I feel like there's a little bit more emphasis this year even on come out, get there early, give these guys – they literally do get flowers. But
give them their literal and figurative.
Give them their flowers. By honoring these seniors.
Drew's on here talking about Bitcoin. You need to check your math on that, man. That's 1,000% not correct math. So check that before you throw it in the chat, man. But lost my train of thought. But what were you just talking about?
I haven't even seen. Now I just want to see what the comment is, about Bitcoin.
Drew said if you put $1,000 in Bitcoin before Trump was elected, you'd have $25,000 now.
Okay.
It did not 25 times over
Well, why are we talking about that?
I think Drew's just happy for his investment, I guess. But
Good job, Drew. No, we were talking about honor. I mean, we went up and down all the seniors, or a good portion of the seniors at least.
Jeff said, can Barrett come back? That depends entirely on if he plays the next 2 games.
That's right.
He's at 4 games right now.
You'd like to bring him back, probably, if you can. And you do have Jules back. He came back for the Missouri game. Not next year. You have Jules back. I'm sorry.
I was about to say, you do not have Jules back.
You have Jules back from injury for the last 2 games.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. There you go. What do you think about the other games this weekend? Have you let yourself start to bounce off hey, if these 5 teams happen.
I've fired up the chaos generator.
What do you have a path off the top of your head?
I don't know if I have a path, but I have a few things that could happen. I mean, what if Texas loses to Kentucky? You might say that's idiotic. That will never happen. Well, Texas hasn't looked. I'm not calling it, by the way. I would pick Texas, but Kentucky beat Ole Miss earlier in the season. They're pretty good. Texas has not looked phenomenal lately.
Texas hasn't just. Well, I guess they did. They did blow out Florida 2 weeks ago, but for the most part, they have not.
They blew out Florida with no DJ lag.
Yeah, for the most part, they have not just blown out.
But here's so.
Travis says Ole Miss needs to lose to Florida. Florida is a little bit different at home and with Lagley.
That kid's good. Wow.
Yeah.
Notre Dame. Notre Dame has Army. Very interesting. Notre Dame the week after Army has Southern Cal, which is not a great team, but has gotten in a lot of close games. So I look at 2 games with Notre Dame where they'll be favored in both. But is there a little bit of upset alert to me? Yes. Who does BYU have this weekend? I saw it earlier and now I forgot. Arizona State. Arizona State, shout out Kenny Dillingham. Good young coach.
Good young man.
A good young man. I actually picked.
He's very likable.
He is. He's funny. Former Gamecock strength and conditioning coach Joe Connolly, strength coach at Arizona State as well. I actually picked Arizona State to upset BYU.
They're favored.
They're favored. Okay, so no upset.
Yeah, they are favored.
Upset only in my head. So what if, and I think in the context not of just this week, but maybe the next 2 weeks too. What if Texas drops another game? Now they're 2 losses with really no very impressive win.
Uh-huh.
What if BYU loses again? What if Notre Dame loses another game? You can start.
Hey, I'm circling Auburn and A&M too. I'm telling you, man, Vegas does not put a 2.5-point line on an 8-2 A&M team that could be going to the SEC championship and is on track to potentially go to the college football playoff against a 1-5 in the SEC, 4-6 overall Auburn team.
That's one of the weirdest lines I've seen.
But dude, when that happens,
I know. What do they know? It doesn't matter. They know something.
I saw a thing earlier this year where Auburn was one of only a handful of teams in the country that was within a certain standard of efficiency on offense and defense. And it was they should be way better than they actually are.
Yeah.
But one of Cole Kubelik's things was he was this was a few weeks ago. He's this team just doesn't know how to win. They just don't. They just make silly mistakes. They do silly things, but they should be better than they are. They just haven't been.
If you watch them, I watched their game against Vandy, and you'll watch it sometimes be they're moving the ball, but they'll do something a wide open slant that could be a touchdown, bounces off the shoulder pads and goes to a defender. Or they throw an inexplicably bad interception or give up an inexplicably bad explosive play, right? So they are a little bit better than their record. One thing I'm trying to figure out, Wes, is, what is kind of the favored, what would be best for South Carolina to backdoor, if it's even possible to backdoor between, Ohio State, Indiana. Do you want Indiana to lose and kind of have one loss and they haven't played a great schedule. The committee seems to really be leaning on wins and losses. Do you want Ohio State to lose and maybe eliminate themselves? I mean, they're still number 2 at 9-1.
I think if Indiana loses, you want them to just get
Smoke.
Absolutely blasted. Like you want, and I'll say this, y'all. We're talking about this because it's fun and because Carolina's actually in the conversation.
Yeah.
So of course we're going to take advantage. The ESPN college football all-state playoff bracket predictor. The percentages are not going in the right direction for the Gamecocks.
The weird thing is that the percentages have gone down.
Yes.
Even when South Carolina has ascended the rankings.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, they were 14%. The next week, they were 13. This week, they're 9.
Yeah.
Kind of weird, even though they're moving up.
Yeah. And so my guess is I think this thing is recalibrated, I guess is the best way to say it, after the committee puts in what they think. And, I mean, guys, there was a moment a few weeks ago where if you plugged in Carolina winning out, their chances were, I think, 43% on this thing. And, now it is, let's see, chance to make the playoff is 23%, even if you went out. So, obviously not great odds.
Not great odds. I mean, now in that 23%, kind of what are the other outcomes? And that, so look, the only thing, 2 things. You got to win out and you need max chaos, right? And I think sometimes that chaos is even hard to define. Like, what is the best outcome? I'm not sure if we even know that. The committee is comprised of humans.
Yeah.
They're using some data points. They're moving the target some. So if you're Carolina, just go out, try to take care of business, see where the chips fall. If you win out and if some other teams lose, you'll have a better chance than you have right now. What that ultimately means, I don't know. But these next couple weeks, man, they're going to be fun. Seeing what happens.
Pull for chaos. Just pull for chaos. We'll see what it means, but pull for it. By the way, a couple of good comments here. Shout out to our girl Marcy, as always, joining us here. She says, "Happy Thursday. Hope you're well, Marcy." Rakeem, with a good reminder here, said, "I don't think people realize Lenoris is really supposed to be a true freshman and is younger than Nico and younger than Raiola, and only 2 months older than Lagway." So it's a good point, and I'm going to trust you on that one, Rakeem. I can't fact check you right now because I don't know exactly how old Raiola and Nico are off the top of my head. But I do remember us being told, hey, look, Lenoris technically could have been a senior a year later, and for age-wise compared to a lot of the other – he was young for his grade.
Don't tell the people at ESPN. They'll say it nonstop.
Yes, they will. And Charles Power told us, look, hey, if this kid was in the next class, he would have been a 5-star, period. But then you're talking about an all-out recruiting war to land his services. So
it's good things happen.
It worked out for the Gamecocks that it happened the way it did. And back to our chaos theory stuff here, man. It is fun that so many of these games matter right now. Like there was that sense. There was a little push from people saying, look, if you make the regular season games not matter as much, because before it was like, all right, if you lose a game, certainly if you lose 2 games, you're out. You're done. Do you make the regular season mean less by making the playoff have more opportunity for teams? In theory, maybe. But what we're seeing is actually now I think it was Red, who's one of our really good posters on the Insiders Forum on Gamecock Central. He was like trying to count the number of games the next 2 weeks that matter. Yeah. And I think it was into the 20s, I think. So that's cool. That's fun that all these games matter. You got a lot of teams involved. You got a lot of parity. And we even, for the first time, maybe not the first time, but the first notable post I've seen, all this talk right now, all offseason. I hate the transfer portal. I hate NIL. I hate the new college football, blah, blah, blah. We had somebody say, you know what? I'm actually loving the new college football.
Yep.
Like on the field on Saturday, this ain't bad, man. Like if you're Carolina, you're watching your team have a chance in every single game. If you're, if you're a team that, Ole Miss, nobody 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago would be thinking of Ole Miss as being a team that was going to have a shot to play for a national title. That team could win the national title this year. It very well could. Yeah. I saw ESPN had them with a 2% chance to win the whole thing.
Too low.
Give me those odds. Like that's.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean they're built for it. You know, like their defense. They have. I mean, it's been a lot of talk about Carolina's defense. Their defensive line being one of the best in the country. I agree. Ole Miss, man, their D line, they wreck shop. They got a really good quarterback. They got a great play caller. They're very talented, right? So we've seen them
good receivers.
They kind of regret that they, had some moments early in the season, but they have progressed to where I think they have, we'll see. Might lose their next game. Who knows? But they are one of the teams that I think is built. So, and I mean, even, man, you just take South Carolina out of it. Like, you just go home from the Carolina game or during one of Carolina's bye weeks, you just watch college football. Like, it's just fun because it's hard to predict what's going to happen this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I do wonder how much does that mounting pressure on all these teams start to factor in? Yep. Because BCS era, it felt like the later you got, as the pressure mounted, you would see teams that had no business losing to other teams would start to lose because they were just filling it.
Yeah.
What happens when that pressure is now on these 20 teams or so that have some percentage chance of going?
Yeah.
Does that factor into them? Does Notre Dame start to feel that and lose to an Army? Southern Cal goes into this game on one side, in 2 weeks you're going, what does Southern Cal even have to play for? But what if they just rally around the idea of, hey, let's just ruin their season. There's something to play for.
Yeah.
Let's say Notre Dame plays tight. Southern Cal plays free with nothing to lose. That can be a dangerous thing, especially with a team that does, regardless of what's happened, still have quite a bit of talent. Yeah. So I think there's going to be some fascinating, I guess. There will be games that none of us see happening that play out.
Probably so. I mean, there's been so much argument over the rankings. Some of that will probably take care of itself, right? I mean,
yeah.
If Notre Dame lost its next 2 games, I don't think any Notre Dame fans are going to be pining to make the playoff, right? They'll be like, we deserve, So some of this will probably take care of itself. There will, at the end of the year, at the end of these 12 regular season games, there will still be some controversies too, which is fine. That's fine.
Yeah, for sure. I'll tell you one reason why, I know we're bouncing around. One reason why Auburn may have a shot against A&M is I don't feel like anybody talks about this Jarquez Hunter kid. He's rushed for 1,000 yards now. Yeah. I mean, I was just going through stats the other night, and I was like, dang, I didn't realize, because we don't have any reason to really follow Auburn. Yeah. I didn't realize how good of a season he has had. I mean, Peyton Thorne has thrown for 2,100 yards and 18 touchdowns. He's just turned the ball over quite a bit. So, anyway, we'll see what happens there. Going through, Boise State has Wyoming, so they're probably not in danger. Notre Dame Army, that's at 7. So when you're getting home from the Carolina game, maybe you catch the second half of that one. Let's see. Colorado, Kansas. Colorado only favored by 3. Kansas is playing the role of spoiler down the stretch. That's a team I would not want to face at this point, to be honest with you. So, all right. Anyway, final keys to victory here for South Carolina.
Yeah.
Play your game.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. Play your game. Don't give an opening, right? And that can mean so many different things. Don't kill yourself with silly penalties. Don't turn the football over. Wofford's had major problems with that this year. Their quarterback's thrown a good many interceptions this season. Even their starter, I think, is even in touchdowns and interceptions. So if you're Carolina, play your game, play it clean, and you should be all right.
Chris, do you know what FBS team Wofford has beaten?
Oh, I don't.
They're 1-25 against
my.
FBS teams. This came back, and what were you doing in the year 2000?
Oh man, year 2000. Let's see, what was I doing? Freshman in high school, I think.
Louisiana Monroe
Mm.
beat them in 2000.
Okay.
They're an FBS.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Sunbelt? Is that right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I actually don't know.
All right.
And if they were there last year, they might be in a different conference this time.
Yeah, you can't keep up with it anymore. Final score?
I do have a final score, 41-7, Carolina.
Okay. I mean, I
accept it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've got the number in my head from the line, as well. Give me Wofford. Give me 10 points for them.
Okay, touchdown, field goal.
I think there'll probably be quite a bit of
just kind of either
shuffling
like
guys in on defense,
tackle on a late score, like busted play early in the game, something like that.
Yeah. Give me a good solid 45-10 game.
Go home happy, watch Army Notre Dame.
Luke Doty touchdown.
Oh, okay.
And call it a night. And get Robbie in there, get Dante in there, Wendell Gregory on defense. Get some of these guys in there, and I think you'll be happy. Keep everybody healthy. I would, unless the tight ends are like truly 100%, I would be very hesitant to even play those guys much. What do you think?
Yeah. You're going to see, if I'm guessing, Wes, it's time for Connor Cox, Nick Elksness, Maurice Brown II.
Yep.
You're going to see some of those guys, I think.
Yep. All right, y'all. Again, this is BP Skinner. Come on out. Get your game day gear, get your wedding gear, get your big event gear. Also, we didn't tell you off the top, but you know it if you're looking at the graphic above our head. We're also presented by Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans, clinthammond.com, 803-422-6797, NMLS number 71597. You know the drill if you're in the market for a new home. Just hit up Clint. He's going to take care of you. And, of course, Brent's going to take great care of you here at BP Skinner Clothiers as well. He is Chris. I am Wes. We'll be back next week. Until then, y'all have a good one.